Happy February, everyone. I am here today to show you guys my painting process for my February Patreon print. This one I really love. I love violets and I'm really excited that this piece turned out as well as it did. And I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm just gonna jump right into the video and let's get started. Okay, so in this piece, I started with a color I actually really didn't like. It was a little too pink for what I was looking for, and I ended up just adding more pigment of that lavender lilac color that I'm using here. It turned out pretty good. I like it as a base color, but I'm glad that I added some cool toned purples to it. I'm using the Kiritake Ganzai watercolors, and they're really pigmented. I mean, they're opaque almost. So it was a little hard to get the colors that I wanted just because I didn't have an exact lilac shade like I liked. This was pretty close, but it was too blue, and I think it was a little too light, so I used it kind of as a base for the purple that I added a little later. This is after the purple that I added, and I think it turned out really nice. I like that color. So I just went ahead and coated all the leaves in green after that. I really like this green, but it was too warm. Again, I think I started this painting too warm in general. I really wanted a cool toned look. So I ended up adding a cool tone green over this in general, and that really helped. It really helped bring the warmth of the leaves down a little bit, but it still kept that tone, which I really enjoyed because it was really bright. And that's what I wanted overall. I wanted some bright looking leaves, and I knew that I was going to be adding colored pencil on the top of it, so I didn't want it to be too dark. While I was letting these leaves dry, I went ahead and started painting in the stars on the top and going in with a bright yellow that I used in the center of the violets as well. It's the same color. I really just can't help myself but put stars in all my work lately. I think they're so beautiful, and they really added a really nice pop of yellow color to this piece. After that was dry, I went in with the background color and I started with this really beautiful iridescent silver or white gold, but I wanted a little more color, so I added this green on top of it and it kind of mixed with that iridescent color and I really like how it turned out. You don't really see it in the print version of this piece, but this was kind of just for me and it created a really grayish hue to the green. I think it looked really cool at the end. I'm not sure if it's really visible on camera, but in person it looks really beautiful and it's just a little extra to me and I really like being just a little extra. So I just repeated that same process all over the bottom part of this painting because I wanted the bottom to be a nice green, but I still needed those leaves to stand out. So I'm glad that the iridescent paint kind of helped with that. And I was really just laying it on thick. I mean, I was just pouring paint all over this. It got really warbly, and I think I need to invest in some thicker paper because, as you can see, I'm really just layering this green over that and trying to mix it in with that white gold. I am actually a little surprised at how well the paper stood up to this because it really isn't expensive paper. I'm pretty sure I was just using the Canson XL watercolor paper for this one. It is my go-to, but it doesn't hold a lot of water very well. It gets very warped and it does puddle, so it doesn't absorb a lot of paper. I think I would love to invest in some Arches watercolor paper and see how my techniques stand with that one because I do tend to paint with a lot of water, especially in my backgrounds. Like right here, I am just feathering out the edges because I was going to mix it in with a warmer color from the top end. And I'm just filling in all of the bits between the petals and stems and leaves. Make sure I don't forget that. That would not look very nice. So I'm just filling all of that in, and then I'll go back in on the top and add a warmer color. I think that this actually did remind me that I really need to invest in some watercolor brushes as well because I'm using a pretty cheap water brush right now and I don't like the control that it has. It doesn't do what it says it does. The water doesn't come out very smoothly at all, so I'll end up with these big blobs or not enough water, and I don't like the issues that I find with this. So I really think that it's time that I invest in some really, really nice watercolor brushes for myself, especially since I've been using watercolors so much more lately. Here I am adding that warm color I mentioned previously. I was hoping for a coffee stained look or like an antique paper look. I'm not sure if I perfectly executed that. But I did end up liking how the end result looked. I think I have to experiment with some more yellow toned beiges next time to see if that helps because that kind of has that antique feel to it and that aged paper look, which I was really hoping for with this because I felt like it was such a vintage looking style print or painting and I thought that that would look really nice. So I'm not absolutely in love with the color that I chose for the background, but I think it turned out really nice in the end anyway. So I went in with these colored pencils right away here, and then quickly realized while I was doing this that the petals needed more pigment. So I ended up stopping with colored pencils and going right back in with some more of that light purple watercolor that I really liked at the beginning and that honestly solved my problems. They were too white looking and it looked unfinished, and I just needed some more pigment. So I threw that on all of the petals that looked a little too light for me, and then went back with my colored pencils and continued on with my process here. I used a lot of these two Prismacolor colored pencils. This one is Imperial Violet PC 1007, and the lighter one that I'm using in just a little bit is the Parma Violet in PC 1008. They're really close to each other. The Imperial Violet, the darker one, is just like a slightly darker, much cooler version of the Parma Violet, and they work really, really beautifully together. I think on camera they look very different, but in person, when you look at the actual color of the pencil, they look really similarly. I think the coating on the outside of especially the Imperial Violet, the darker one, makes it look so much more different and so much darker and cooler, but they are such similar colors. And I think that these two colors really made the piece. I used them all over these petals and created some beautiful shading textures, and they worked really, really well. I actually really love the colored pencil texture for this piece, especially because of the texture of the petals in real life. When you look close at a flower petal, it does have that slight texture to it, even when it's really smooth. And I think that these colored pencils on the watercolor paper really show that. And I think it's such a beautiful, subtle texture, but looks really painterly and almost realistic, but obviously you can tell this isn't realism. I really love how that looks. I think it was executed really well and gives a little bit of blending and texture that I was really looking for. And the colors were just perfect. This was my favorite part of the whole colored pencil process. I loved these beautiful lines in the violet. Not all violets have these lines in it, and I chose a photo of a violet that does have this because I thought the pattern was so beautiful. I just can't believe that nature creates all of this beauty and not everybody stops to quote unquote smell the roses, right? And I just really enjoy sharing that with the world. So I went ahead and shaded the middle section of that flower the same way that I shaded these stars, except I did end up adding a little bit of red to the end of the stars as well, just for a little warmth and a little pop. I wanted some more contrast in those, so you'll see I also just kind of tipped them with a red color. And here you can see more of that texture that I was talking about in those petals. I think it looks really nice, and on top of the watercolor, it looks so natural to me, and it's just beautiful. I do wish that it had stayed lighter outside when I was painting. I started this kind of midday, and it is winter, so it got dark pretty quickly. So the lighting is from my lamp and doesn't really allow you to see like the contrast and the depth of the colors as well. But I'm glad that it does show the texture of the watercolor. I really enjoy how it looks, and I really like when watercolors, especially, have that little ridge around the edge of like where the water settled. I think it looks really beautiful, and it added to that aged look on the top that I really was looking for. Here I'm going in with a much darker color. I really love this colored pencil. It adds such a beautiful amount of contrast to the piece. I went in with that especially for the leaves and all of those lines, but I ended up taking it all over the stems as well to create a heavy amount of contrast. I think it looks really, really, really nice. And I didn't want the stems to be too light because they're kind of in the background. I really wanted those leaves to stand out. So I think it was the perfect color to use for that. And it gave it such a beautiful, rich texture. I really like the shape of the buds on violets, especially. I think they look like little cocoons, and it's so, so cute. I think that drawing a little cocoon sticker for a specific bug or butterfly would be really, really cute. And honestly, I think that might be my next sticker. I should work on that. I think those look adorable and it's just inspiring me so much. There is almost no better feeling than being inspired by your own artwork. I think it's so liberating in an age where we think that inspiration has to come from other artists when inspiration should come from a number of sources. Honestly, it can come from other artists, but I think nature and your own mind and your own works are such great resources to be inspired by because it kind of develops that style that all of these artists are looking for. You know, how do I make my style cohesive? How do I find my style? And I think that really focusing on your own work and being inspired by the things that you create develops that style. And I think that's what a lot of people miss when they give advice like, "Oh, just practice a lot and, don't idolize one specific artist, like, take from others." But I think that they miss that taking from your own art is such a beautiful thing. And I've been really doing that lately. And it's made my art so much better just in the past couple of months. I think that it's really just so, it is really just liberating. I love it so much. And this piece inspired so many pages in my sketchbook and just so many ideas because I loved the way that I composed the buds at the bottom and the heavy contrast that I added with these dark colored pencils that you're seeing. I think it looks gorgeous. I think when we think about our own style and we want it to look cohesive, I think that it is a trap. You don't want all of your art pieces to look the same, and you don't want everything to have the same color scheme. I think that it just should all look like it's made by you because we're so critical of the things that we make ourselves because it looks like they were made by ourselves because we idolize other artists and their styles and how they make things look. But when you look at your pieces as a whole and put them all together, you really can tell that all of them were made by your own hands. And I think that that gives just such an advantage when you're working with yourself that you know how things are going to come out and you know how things are going to look, you know how you create. And it allows you to create better or know your own strengths and weaknesses. And I really think that people need to focus more on that and less about, oh, it looks like it was made by me. And I don't like that because I made this. I love it. I think it's so inspiring to see the end product, which is here. And I was just taking this video while I was cleaning up, but I hope you really like it as much as I do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick process video, and if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. If you stayed this long, also make sure you like and give me a subscribe if you want to see more of this content. It really, really helps me out, and I appreciate it so much. Until next time, I'll see you later.